Hello Trekkies, I'm Mr. Smock from Vulcan here at the outpost, culturally observing you Earthlings for a survey mission on the USS Discovery. So with me here today is Mr. Thomas and Mr. Chow, local Malaysian Trekkies who have just watched the first two pilot episodes of Star Trek Discovery. So gentlemen, what is your initial impressions of these first pilot episodes of this new series? Thomas?
I felt it's a bold and new step in a new direction, right, for the franchise, and I'm looking forward to seeing more episodes from this series.
Chow, how about yourself?
Okay, being a Star Trek fan myself, I find it that any Trek movie that comes out is good, but for this first two episodes, it's a non-stop roller coaster ride. It was good, it was refreshing, and well, I just love the faces.
Having watched a number of human entertainment in movies and TV myself, I would like to feel that this TV series debuts very much in a cinematic quality, although we had to only watch it on the small screen instead of the big cinema screen. So how do you both feel about, the visual response for this series? I heard a number of remarks saying lens flare.
Yeah, lens flare. Actually, for the bridge, to me, it's a bit crowded, but it looks good. It looks functional, right? It's making a very bold step forward, just like when TNG came out. They're all shot on white screen. So this is the feeling we get. Except it reflects on today's era, so everything looks crisp, looks nice. It's very cinematic feel to it.
To me personally, I find the opening sequence to be quite fantastic, and I think they put in quite a bit of budget in terms of the CGIs and the effects that were used throughout the show. Right. What kept me interested as well is how they are using all these technological advances and effects to actually showcase certain segments of the storytelling. Like for example, the part where they were actually the first officer was actually flying through space on the clusters. So that was a very cool sequence, right?
I think that's very much so that special effects and budget of the previous series would never have been able to pull that off convincingly on TV, even in the movies.
Yes. No doubt for Star Trek fans, you'll find a lot of references there from phaser blasts, and every time they get shot, people will still die, and there's still no seatbelts there. But honestly, it's a very good show. You should go look into it.
Without going into spoiler territories, what is your take on the main protagonist, which is Michael Burnham, played by Sinica Market Green, as the first officer of the Zenzo?
Okay. Personally, I think she reflects she reflects something from one of the more famous characters from the Star Trek franchise, which is Spock, right? In which she has to balance, she has to juggle between two worlds. One is of her Vulcan heritage, the other one is of her human side. So I would expect that throughout the series there will be more chance for us to see how she managed to do so. You see both sides of her characters. So yes, as you can see from this first two episodes, there's already some hints for what to expect, and I look more forward to it.
Yeah, basically, humans and Vulcan, they always have this dilemma between, they have to choose between Vulcans or Earth and so on. So it's not much difference on this Star Trek Discovery, but the thing is, we are seeing more on the Vulcan side, which is we have never seen before, right? So without the spoilers, we can't tell you it's very interesting indeed.
It is no spoiler that indeed the character played by Sinequa Martin Green is Michael Burnham as a 100% pure human, brought up by Vulcans as a ward of Sarek himself, which you may know as Mr. Spock's father. So here we have an interesting dynamic of a human aspiring to be a Vulcan. And there, of course, is measures of internal conflict, somewhat reflective of what may have been seen and often seen in Mr. Spock in the original series. But in this case, she is fully human. Now, in the dynamic of the relationship between Michael Burnham and her mentor, which is Captain Philippe Georgia, played by Malaysia's Tan Sri Michelle Yeoh, what do you both feel about that relationship?
The captain is very, very protective of the first officer. It's like as if she's the foster mother to her. But however, she does trust her up to the point and lets her go her own way, right? But there are things that Michael Burnham wants to do that the captain will disapprove of until we saw the full story unfolds. Right? This is a kind of flow I can't follow, but it's actually very interesting. And also, this is one of the factors that kept me there because of the captain herself.
Thomas, you are a fan of Voyager. Do you see similarities between this relationship with Janeway and 7 and 9, and this is also being played out again with Captain Giorgio and Michael Burnham?
Of course, there will be some differences, but there are similarities in which they both of them explore the relationship with each other, alright? But of course, in a way that we will not really expect, because they will in both of the series they will all trust in a different situation. So, but I do see something, although I wouldn't be able to actually put into words as to how that is so.
Mm-hmm.
Alright.
Shall we just touch a bit on Lieutenant Saru? I think the one other character which stands out among the rest, of course it's because he is a very distinctive alien played by Doug Jones, and I think a species which we haven't been seen before.
No, we have not.
Yes.
What do you feel about Lieutenant Saru?
Lieutenant Saru is actually the science officer, and he's very cautious. So usually he doesn't like conflict, but during the first few minutes when he's interacting with the first officer, Michael, it's very interesting to see the banters here and there. So they already established the characters. They have the internal conflicts and so on. It's just like how do you say, Spock and the Doctor.
I guess that because he is of an alien race, and this particular alien race have certain particular quirks and behavior, so I would feel that the actor he actually did a very good job in making full use of this alien characteristic to actually, well, no pun intended, to actually add character to that role, and I think in this case he actually done a very good job at it.
Yes.
Although for all you all who may be less informed, actor Doug Jones does indeed play a lot of unusual alien characters, most notably of which Abe Sapien in the Hellboy movie series. That is Doug Jones.
Oh!
Now, before we get into any spoilers, may you all make your piece about the Klingons and what seems to be happening with them and how their interpretation seems to have changed yet again in Star Trek canon.
In this series, the Klingons are, well, we can just say they have been reinvented and rebooted, and so until to this, the way they are now, right? It's very different from what we are used to seeing the Klingons in other series, right? Although at the first look they might seem a bit different and a bit triggering to everybody. But once you give it a chance, then you sort of like, okay,
Well, personally, I would think that in the earlier variation of the Klingons from the earlier series, they are more focused on honor,
Yes.
and how they actually reflects that is quite different from what you see in the current Star Trek Discovery. I would have a bit of a mixed feeling because this is not the first time. I mean, I've seen almost all the Star Trek series since the original series, and they have actually changed quite a bit in terms of the interpretation and how they behave and their rationale for doing things. And although I like what I mentioned earlier, I have a mixed feeling. I do hope to see more deeper rationale and motivation for all these Klingons. Design wise, I'm okay with it. But other than that, I would think that the quality of the costumes and the design, I think they have put in a lot of work and effort into it. So, yeah.
For the record, correct me if I'm wrong, there were the Klingons in the original series known as the smooth foreheads, which evolved then later into the bumpy forehead Klingons seen from the original series movies and the Next Generations, Worf being the most famous one of which.
Yes.
And all this was explained somewhat in the canon timeline in early Enterprise series and the Augment virus stories. Then we have the Klingons in the J.J. Abrams Kelvin timeline, which we shall not need to touch on.
Yes.
And now these current Klingons are, I think a certain term has yet to come for it. We call it Discovery Klingons, which oddly sounds strange. But Discovery takes place 10 years before the original series, and it will be an interesting question looking ahead how the Klingons as we see in Star Trek Discovery will then relate to the Klingons that we are more familiar with in the original series. In a matter of 10 years, maybe it will be explained in the overarching plot, or maybe it won't, but it's amusing to speculate, is it not?
Oh yes, it is. Because right now the Klingons on this Star Trek Discovery is unlike what we have seen before.
You have to watch the show with an open mind, especially if you are a long-time Trek fan.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that it may cause a certain sense of alienation from some fans because
you want to close your eyes.
yes, especially when we do have the screening with a few other fans.
Long-time Trekkies,
yes. So the opinions do differ, but one thing that I have no doubt is that the show is not boring. It's interesting. It kept you wanting to see more. Yes.
For further in-depth and behind the scenes, there is a program immediately following the 2 episodes called After Trek.
Yeah.
It is available, and it goes into spoiler territory, but that allows them to discuss the details of what happens and speculate on future episodes. So in taking a few words from the After Trek episode, I think for the benefit of viewers, these 2 episodes could very much feel as a prologue movie to a series. And the series will run for 15 episodes between now and January. It is available in Malaysia via Netflix. Most of the promo you may see that Discovery is airing every week on Sundays, and it comes to Monday mornings Malaysian time. So perhaps to close, what would you like to tell other fans who may be watching this and he may not have yet watched Discovery in short?
Okay, just like Thomas said, watch it with an open mind, right? Because Star Trek is about changes anyway, and for the future of mankind. So just watch it. It's okay. It's cool. right? Except your hardcore Trekkies, you really, really need to watch it in your open mind.
Yes. Basically, well, we are going into new and we'll boldly go into a new territory. All right. So as fans, I think the least that we can do is to like what I mentioned earlier, watch the series with an open mind, right, and support our show our love for the series, the one that we have spent literally nearly our entire life
Supporting
watching it. Yes.
Thank you very much, guys. And I think before we totally close off, I would just like to jump into the spoiler territory. If you do not want to be spoiled, please stop listening to this video right now. But going into the spoiler territory, I would just like to give our true fans here the opportunity to, shall we say, get anything off your chest and rant about it if you feel like it.
Sarek looks like Jim Carrey. And the Klingons, they look like Nosferatus.
That's putting it lightly. Yes. So.
And look closely in the ready room of Captain Giorgio. You may notice something quite traditional from the Malaysian cultural background.
Yeah.
Look closely and you may be surprised. Now, if you like what we say, please follow us on MySci-Fi Outpost, the YouTube channel. You can click right on the lower left corner. Also follow what we have to say on our blog, which is at outpost.com.my. This is Mr. Smock, signing off. Live long and prosper. Thank you very much for watching. Vulcan Cultural Officers Log Supplemental, Mr. Smock recording. In my review of the mission logs of other pilot episodes from the previous incarnations of Star Trek on television, my assessment is that the two-parter episodes of Star Trek Discovery, when seen as a series pilot, does rank among the better entries for a new series. It is certainly a product made for the new audience and potentially could solicit new viewers to the franchise. That being said, old-time Trekkies may not be totally happy with the interpretation, but then again, this is not your grandfather's Star Trek. If you're a local Star Trek fan in Malaysia, please find us on the Facebook group Starbase My Malaysia, and we welcome to join in discussions and share your thoughts on Star Trek Discovery. So until next week, we say live long and prosper.